I think there's probably a lot of people that are struggling making sourdough, kind of like I am. There's so many different recipes out there, and it's really difficult to find one that's not only easy, but that actually comes out okay. I've had a couple of them come out okay, and this was the last recipe that I used. I found it online, and it's Lazy Sourdough Bread Recipe by Danny Koch. So it's pretty simple. You want to get your ingredients: 200 grams of unfed starter, 260 grams of warm water, 420 grams of flour, 1 3/4 tablespoon of salt, and optional to oil the bowl. So I kind of wanted to just do this recipe and see if it turns out. This was kind of a long video, so I ended up having to do it in 2 different parts. So this would be part 1. You can see in the video that the unfed starter is already in the bowl. I'm trying carefully to have the perfect amount of grams for the water there. And I decided to do 2 different bowls. One, I ended up, you'll see, but I wanted to try kind of 2 different things to see which one would turn out better. I've done them separately in the past and not quite sure which one really turns out better. So for this recipe, when you add the water, you want to mix it with the starter. So that's the first thing that you're going to do, is mix it. So that was kind of different than some of the other recipes that I've tried. So this one also involves kneading the dough, which was different too, because some recipes are no knead. So you'll see that coming up here in a few minutes as well. And like I said, I did this twice, so you can see there's 2 different bowls here. And now that they're well mixed, you're going to see adding the flour. Again, I was very careful to try to put in as close to the exact amount as possible, because at times it can get a little heavy on the hands with the flour, and I just wanted to make sure that this recipe is going to work for my family and hopefully for some of yours. So once the flour is added into the bowl, it actually calls to knead the dough for 5 minutes. And once the flour is in the bowl, don't forget to add the salt. That's something I often forget to do and make bread that has very little taste because it doesn't have salt. You have to add the salt. This recipe was 1 3/4 teaspoon. Some people kind of do a little more or a little less depending on your family and your salt intake and what you think is appropriate. I just wanted to follow the recipe on target to make sure that I was doing everything the way that it calls for. So you can see here now that's the second bowl. Adding the flour. Don't mind the people in the background. They are watching TV in the house and it's quite loud. So here we are adding the rest of the flour to the second bowl. Trying to get it as close to perfect as possible. We want that 420 grams of flour in there. As you can see, I was trying very hard to get it. Oh, went a little over. Got to take a little flour out the top and try to get it as close to 420 on the dot as possible. There we are. Okay. Now the fun part. The salt. Don't forget to add the salt. I added the salt to both bowls. And then this was the part that I became just a little frustrated because it said to knead it for 3 to 5 minutes. Of course, we wanted to mix everything first. And as I was mixing it, I just felt like it was becoming more and more sticky. And I just wasn't able to really pick it up and handle it the way I thought I should be able to. But maybe this is just how sourdough works. I don't know. you'll see in a moment that bowl number 1 that you can't see right this second, I ended up adding more flour to my hands. I tried initially just to add water to my hands to make it easier to knead, but that did not work. So then I added some flour. That did help a little bit, but it just seemed to soak that flour up really quickly and just become sticky all over again. This other bowl, I actually added oil to my hands, and it seemed to help again just a little bit. It was still a big sticky mess. I had to work to get that out from my fingers and between my fingers. So that was where we were with that. So with the one bowl adding a little bit of flour to my hands and the other one adding oil, we will see in the end if there's a difference or if they turn out the same, or if there's a preferred method that I'll be using moving forward. It's really difficult to knead sourdough bread by hand. Some people have the KitchenAid mixer. That might be a better way to go. I don't have one, so at this point I just knead bread by hand. As you can see, I was struggling with kneading this, and you can stay tuned to see which way worked the best. If you have your own methods that work better than this, I would love to learn that, because this has been something that I enjoy doing, and I will say I'm definitely a beginner, and I like the lazy recipes because who has time to bake all day? As you can see, the struggle was real trying to get this dough to cooperate with me to do the kneading. I read in the recipe that the kneading was intended because since this is the lazy recipe, there may not be stretch and folds that are needed to produce the gluten that's necessary for it to rise in the oven, but I still struggled with this. I will add some clips of the stretch and the fold that I did decide to do because it is recommended, although this recipe said you could opt out of it. So those clips will be added shortly, but that's going to be a different video which will show the rest of the production and whether or not this was a successful recipe this go around.